Welcome to Chufia FS. In case you're new in this channel, consider subscribe to this channel, like, comment, and share to others. So in today's lesson, I'll be teaching you how to analyze market using impulse and correction. This is Solana USD. I'll be teaching you by using this Solana USD, and I'll be analyzing it. I told you people that when I'm teaching, my teaching come in form of analysis. The pair that I'm using to teach, I'm actually analyzing it. So listen carefully. This teaching, especially this lesson, this topic is going to help you in a long way. It's going to help you. If you have been following my video or my teaching, I told you that whenever you open a chart, immediately the first thing that you consider is the previous trend. As you can see, we have our previous trend here. Mark your previous trend. Mark the height of your previous trend. Then come and mark the low of your previous trend that join with the current trend, making a V shape. So as you spot out this height and low, now you have gotten your resistance and your support. You have gotten your overall resistance and overall support. Now you want to figure out your entry point from the current trend line. Now this is our previous trend line, right? Here is our previous trend line. As you can see, is a very clear chart. We see that the market have already broke our previous trend line, and then we have our current trend line here. This is our current trend line. Now, after figuring out your previous and your current trend line, there is a whole lot of work to still do. Entry point is another case. It's not enough to figure out a trend line. You have to spot out your possible support and resistance for your entry point. So now, looking at this current trend line, we see an impulse here. That create a correction here. We see another impulse here that create another correction here. So how do you trade this kind of market? Once you see a market like this, what you will do is that you continue to mark your impulse height. Your impulse height is your entry point. For the future impulse. This is what I'm trying to say. Now, this impulse, I'll have to mark this impulse is the entry point that trigger this current impulse. This is what I'm saying. This impulse, right? This is the impulse, and this is the correction. This correction is the one that trigger this impulse. Now that you have marked the support from your previous impulse, which is the height of your previous impulse, is going to be your entry point for the corrections of this your current impulse. Do you get it? Now, this correction, this is your entry point. It's just like you have predicted where this correction is coming to stop. Once this correction is done, as you can see, immediately the market touch it begin to bounce back. It has started creating another impulse. Now, we don't want to know where this impulse is going, but wherever it's going, once we miss this correction, we have to wait. Now, let me show you. We have impulse here, and then correction, impulse here, and then correction. Now, this correction is our entry point. But whatever that make you to miss this correction, you have to wait for another correction. Then let's assume that this market trigger up, this correction trigger this impulse up. Maybe this correction trigger this impulse up, right? What you will do is that you will have to forget that impulse and mark the height immediately, because whatever that goes up will come down. Here is just like a trap. You have set a trap for the next correction. Do you get? You have set a trap for the next correction. Now, once the correction started, you are waiting to enter your market from this very point. Do you see? You will see another correction here. Then we wait for another triggers of impulse to goes up. Once this one goes up, can you see? Until it reach the height of the previous trend. That is your final take profit, because from there you might probably begin to see a forms of reversal. You might probably begin to see a forms of reversal that this market, it can possibly drop down, because it can possibly drop down and break this this support from the previous height of impulse. Once this support is broken, you know that yes, the trend line have started changing. But there are some other cases that this market can break this height and come back again. You know that the trend line continue, but the previous trend line is no longer in the equation again. Once the market break the previous trend line and height, it have already cancelled the existence of the previous trend line. Is no longer in the equation. You begin to consider this one alone. So that is how to analyze using impulse. As you can see this market now, let's just say we have a correction here. So every correction is your entry point. Let me just say every correction from the impulse is your entry point. Correction from the impulse is your entry point. I hope you understand this simple analysis, this simple lesson, and this simple teaching. I trust you understand it. In case if there is any question that you want to ask, drop your question in the comment box below. I will humbly answer your question. So for this Solana, this is where you should enter this market from. Whatever that you are doing, whatever the market is doing, or whatever you are seeing, you should enter this market around this place. If this market eventually still trigger down, this is your entry point. This is your entry point. Then your stop loss is the next correction. Your stop loss is this next correction. This is how to analyze a simple market using impulse and then correction. Thank you for watching. See